This video is going to demonstrate how to use Flexbox in Web Design 2. Once you're on Blackboard, go under Demos, and then you want to scroll down to where it says Flexbox, and we are going to download the Flexbox demo zip, and we are going to put that into the Web 2 folder in Demos and hit Save. Minimize this for a moment, go inside of Web 2, Demos, and here is our Flexbox demo zip. So I'm going to double click to unzip it, and then I can just delete the zip file. With this still open, I am going to open up the index inside of Chrome so we can see we literally have some stuff on the page, and then I am going to open up this folder with a code editor. In my case, I am using Atom, but you can do everything, all of this in Dreamweaver. All right, so I'm just going to take this Flexbox demo folder, drag it right into Atom, hit Not Now if that window pops up, and then I'm going to open up my index, and I will go up to the menu bar and choose View. Okay, so I'm on the menu bar and I hit View, and then I hit Toggle Soft Wrap. All right, so I have the Meta Viewport in here already. Perfect. I have the reset. I have my styles linked. So let's go ahead and open up styles because we're going to need that also. And you'll see that we have classes 1, 2, and 3. And you can see the coordinating background colors. So this one is 1, this one is 2, and then the magenta one is 3. There's also a main that has a background color. We can't see it right now, but we will eventually take a look at it. Okay, so this is kind of what we're working with right here, and I'm gonna minimize that because I don't need it. Let's make it a little bit easier to see. So we have main with a couple of divs in here. A reminder that we're using div in this case instead of section or article because there's no heading in the contents. It's just paragraphs. If there were headings, then we could use article or section. All right, so in this case, I want all 3 of these divs to be columns. I want them to go side by side. Previously, we would have had to have added a width to each one of them, and we would have had to added float : left. And the issue with the widths is that we would have to do math and kind of figure out how wide we want each one of them to be. And we have to make sure that we make enough room for all of them to go side by side and to leave in room for margin and padding. Well, with Flexbox, it works a little bit different. One thing that you need to have, obviously you have to have your columns, but then you have to have some containing element, some containing tag. In this case, it's main. You could use anything, like it doesn't have to be main, it could be something else, but in this case, main is what we have. So main in this scenario is referred to as the parent element, and the divs are the children because it's inside of main, right? Main is a child to body. All right, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. Like any tags that are inside of another tag are the children. So the div is a child of main, this one is a child of main, this one is a child of main. Main is a parent to these 3, but main is also a child to this one. Okay, the same way that you are a child to your parent, but then your parent is also a child to your grandparents. Okay, so we're going to jump over the CSS and we are going to style main. I'm going to make this code just a little bit larger and make sure everyone can see it really good. And I am just going to add display : flex. All right, display : flex. So let's save that, come back into our browser window and refresh. And looky, you got columns. It really is that simple. Now, if you notice, the columns are only as wide as the content, and we're going to look at how to adjust the widths and add spacing and things like that. But the other thing that I want to point out is this background color here, right? This dark background color. That is main, right? So you're seeing all the empty space of main because we don't have any other content in here to go side by side. Right, I'm going to add another declaration in here because it is something that could be helpful. I'm going to do flex-flow, and this is shorthand for flex direction and flex wrap. So I'm going to do row, which means I want them to go, well, here, we'll just show you. Row, space, and then no wrap. Okay, row, space, no wrap. Okay, so I'm going to save it and then refresh. Now, it kind of is doing this on its own. We're actually going to work with the control for this in a little bit. But row basically means make it go side by side. You actually have the option to do column in there instead. And column is a way that you can make it go just stacked vertically. So some of you might be asking, well, like, what's the point in having that? Well, what if in my mobile view, I want it to be column, but then in my media query, I want it to be row, right? So you can kind of set it up to make it easier for yourself to code like that. All right, and then no wrap means that no matter what we add, don't let the items wrap to the next line. So you could do wrap and the classes would eventually wrap to the next line, and we will look at that a little bit more later. All right, so first let's look at, let me actually save this and go back. This is what we want, perfect. So let's make the items fill this container, fill the parent equally. All right, and for that we're going to use the property just called flex. So if I want them all to be equal, they're going to get a value of 1. So this is just a ratio, 1-to-1 ratio, so they're equal, they're the same. So I'm going to put it on all of them and refresh. And look, they instantly fill that container. All right, if there were 18 more of them and I put flex 1 on all of them, they would all expand and contract so that way they're all the same size. All right, what if you want one of them to be wider? Well, if I wanted 2 to be wider, then I would just put a bigger number on it. So what I have in the middle, so instead of it being flex 1, maybe I'll put it as flex 8. Maybe I'll put the third one as flex 4. All right, so the bigger the number, the bigger it is. There we go. Look, this one has the 8 on it. This one has 4. This one has 1. When it's all 1-to-1 to 1, that's equal. But then as soon as you start changing up the numbers, now some of them get changed in width. All right, so you actually can't use width with the flex number because that's what it's doing, like that's what it's there for. So the nice thing about this is that it is still responsive. Okay, it is going to contract and expand with your browser window, which is great. It's what we want. It's what we want. And you can add margins to this too. So I'm going to come into the class called 2, and I will do margin, and I'll just do hyphen left just so you can see it. And do like 3%, make it something we can see. There you go. So that little piece of dark blue right here, that is the main tag. So that is the margin for 2. So just to show you, I'm going to right click and go to inspect. And if I put my mouse over 2, you can see that little spot turned orange, and that's kind of what it's indicating down here in this diagram too, is that we've got more margin on the left on number 2. All right, so it's going to continue to fill proportionally as you add more items to main. All right, so what I'm going to do is jump into the index, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to highlight all of class 3, and then I'm going to copy it. So I'm hitting Command C or Control C if you are on a PC. So, and then I'm going to paste it like just a bunch of times. I don't even know how many times I just pasted it. And, you know, maybe in this one, what I'm going to do is highlight the paragraph. So I have the opening and closing paragraph tag here. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it a few more times just to show that I've got a bunch of paragraphs in a couple of these. Right? It doesn't matter if you chose the same one that I did or not. Just choose a couple of these divs and add a bunch of paragraphs to them. So that way they're not all the same. All right, so that way they're not all the same. So I will come in here and refresh, and look, it still is keeping them all proportional. The green one is still the widest. I know the magenta here looks like it's the widest, but it's not. Remember, it's got like 8 different divs now that are all being told to have flex of 4. And each one of them is still wider than this blue. So look at how easy we were able to do that. If we did this with floats, we would have to go back in and adjust all of our widths and margins and padding. So this was just a lot quicker to do that. All right. What if we want to add an aside to have it, go side by side with main? Well, let's come down here and let's tell this to have an aside. And again, it doesn't always have to be an aside. This is just kind of like a fallback method here. And I'll just put some, I just pasted the paragraph that I had copied from earlier. Say for my aside. And let's just make sure, save, refresh. Okay, so right here is my aside. Right here's my aside. And just to catch you up, guys, whenever I pasted this in, it was just because it was what I had copied from up here. All right, so I didn't do anything different. I just put some paragraph in your aside. It really doesn't matter what it says. And then I saved, and then I came in here and refreshed. Okay, so now what is my container? If I want the aside to come over here, what is my container? Right, so think about that. I've got main, so all of this is main. And here's my aside. What is my flex container? What's my flex container? What's the parent element here? Hopefully you're thinking it's body. Right? Body is the parent for main and aside. Now, if I didn't have something there, I would just have to add something. Like I could have added a div because there's no headings. Right? So you're allowed to add in a new tag to be a flex container. All right, I am going to style body here, and this is just mostly because I'm used to seeing body at the top, so I'm going to style it there, and I'm going to tell it display flex, and I'm going to refresh, and look how easy, guys. All right, it's still keeping its proportion, right? It's still doing that, and then it had room for the aside over here. This might be a good time to say what the children are, or what what this is a container for. So you could say flex container for 1, 2, 3. So that way, whenever you're looking at it really quickly and you're like display flex, oh well, what are the columns inside of it? Well, whenever you see that comment there, you know that these are the children for it. So for this one, for body, you could say, well, this is a flex container for main and aside. And I'm saving it. All right, so let's go in and give proportions to main and aside. So I'm going to tell main to be flex 1, and then just to really kind of throw everything off, let's style aside. And I'll do this down here at the bottom. And I'm going to tell aside to be flex 3. All right, so think about it. Which one is going to be bigger? Aside, bigger in width, I should say. Is aside going to be bigger, or is main going to be bigger? Okay, hopefully you said aside, because whatever has the bigger flex number is the one that is going to be larger. All right, so I'm going to save. Oh boy, let's see. Yikes. All right, but again, look, we didn't have to mess with any math. We didn't have to do any adjustments. As soon as we put in that flex ratio, it did the numbers for us. It did the number, crunching for us. So very helpful and made it a lot less stressful. Now, the text is squished, and the main and aside content start to overlap, and that's because you can only make these columns so tiny before the words themselves no longer fit in them. So that's one of the issues that we're having here. So this is going to kind of come back to this part right here. Right? This is going to come back to this part right here. At the beginning, we said no wrap. And no wrap meant that no matter what we add, you can't let the items wrap to a new line. So look at how squished they are here. They're not wrapping to a new line. They can't go to a new line. So what I'm going to do is, instead of this saying no wrap, I'm just going to have it say wrap. So that way, if it feels that it needs to wrap any content down to the next line, it can. So refresh, and there we go. Look, and now these aren't overlapping, right? That's the difference between wrap and no wrap, right? So wrap tells the browser, hey, if this is getting too crunched in here, then let some of that content go down the next line, because this is supposed to, the aside is supposed to have more room than the main. Typically, aside wouldn't have more room than the main, but you never know. All right, so just to show you the difference again, no wrap, and this is with wrap, meaning that it always has, I'm sorry, this is with no wrap. So it is not allowed to wrap no matter what you do. All right, so do that and save. And so this is with wrap. And that's kind of the basics of flexbox. The main thing is that you need a flex container. So that's the parent element. And then you have the children inside of it, which are the flex items. Those are the columns. And you just tell that flex container to display flex, and then bam, you instantly get columns. If you want to do any adjustments with it, then that's using flex. If you want to control whether it wraps or not, that's this line right here, specifically talking about wrap or no wrap. And you can still add margin and padding to it. So you still have flexibility. In fact, it feels like you have more flexibility because you don't have to worry about math as much. Okay, so hopefully you found this helpful. It's something that it's going to take you kind of coding on your own. So hopefully you were following along with this demo and you were trying to code it alongside me, pausing the video whenever you needed to, and kind of going through it that way. If you have any questions, as always, do not hesitate to ask, even if it's just for like another explanation or something like that. Anything that I can do to make it a little bit easier to understand, don't hesitate to ask.